they're living life fully through the senses, and they're basically coming and approaching life from a perspective where every single experience can bring them closer to that realization that they have everything they need inside of them, that they are complete.
This is episode 6 with Katrin Blumenauer from Blooming Hearts. And today we're talking about Tantra as a pathway for self-growth and deeper connection in intimate relationships. It's Katrin, and a huge welcome to the Living on Purpose podcast, a place where we discuss the importance of purpose in our lives and connect with others that have created soul-aligned offerings that build into their own personal purpose. Before we get started, please make sure to turn on notifications, subscribe, rate, and review the Living on Purpose podcast. When you send me your screenshot of the review to Katrin@klzmethod.com, we will send you our KLZ Method workout for the chakras. Also, as you're listening, screenshot your favorite part and share it with us on Instagram at klz.method. I love hearing from you and sharing your thoughts and comments. I'm super grateful to you and all of our amazing listeners for helping us to grow the podcast and share its guests and message with more people. Before we head into the show, here is a quick word from our sponsor. Combining high-intensity interval training, boxing, and strength workouts, along with yoga, pranayama or breath work, Kundalini Kriyas, affirmation, and chakra study to bring us to the best version of ourselves. This is the opposite of slamming a caffeinated beverage, cranking up the tunes, and vacating the body while you just do it. We are bringing connection back to the body, expressing so much gratitude for this blessing that we've been given. With easily accessible, pre-recorded, and live content, joining this monthly membership and high vibe community is an absolute must. Use discount code podcast10 at checkout for $10 off the monthly membership. Let's start the show. Welcome back. I'm here today. I'm super excited about this episode with Katrin Blumenauer. She's here from Blooming Hearts, and she is a tantric coach. We're going to talk today with her about how we can get closer to a deeper relationship with ourselves through Tantra. So thank you for joining me. I'm so glad to have you on, and tell us a little bit about what you do and how you've been able to support others in coming closer to themselves, to their relationship with themselves.
Yes, thank you so much, Katrin. Thank you so much also for the beautiful introduction. I mean, there's so much to say. I just felt like for the majority of my life that I was lacking something in terms of how I was intimate with myself and with others. And so always there was this passion to even speak with my friends about sexuality and intimacy and relating. And I mean, eventually now I've made this into my work. And I'm working with couples mostly to support them in coming closer. For example, I'm working with a couple. They've been married for 12 years, 2 kids. It's like you're in everyday life, and sometimes the intimacy gets lost along the way. The creativity gets lost. So I'm working very closely, especially with couples, but also individuals, in terms of finding a deeper way to connect with themselves, to relate with themselves. Yeah. And for me, the number one way to do this is a more conscious approach to relating. And then also, of course, bringing Tantra and introducing Tantra into people's lives. And it's a very beautiful process to see couples that have really, you can feel this, when you're sitting somewhere, when you're in a restaurant and you're seeing a couple that's been married for a while, you can really see their level of intimacy and sometimes even feel it. And one of the most beautiful things for me is when I can perceive how that changes over time, and I'll do fun things. I'll invite, couples to do little sensual exercises during the coaching. Most of the coaching that I'm doing is actually online because I have couples everywhere in the world. And it's really beautiful to then see them, it's like, okay, they're doing really, really fun and creative exercises that helping them reconnect, helping them find a deeper way of relating. So really going into their senses and into their sensuality to come back into the sexuality eventually too.
I love it. And when we spoke a little bit before we kicked off this episode, and we were just getting so nerdy about it all, and just how sensuality is related to your senses, and how your senses are such a portal of really connecting deeper into yourself. How to come into a deeper connection with your purpose is to be in that place where you really feel good. And of course, those two are parallels. Can you share a little bit more about? I want to go more into more basic description of Tantra. There are a lot of listeners here that have a background in Kundalini yoga, so they understand, chakras and energy and moving energy through their bodies and things like that. But I think that Tantra is something that is sort of that next step that we would really love to hear more about how sensuality and sexuality, how they kind of work into Tantra in a basic way, a basic description.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Yeah. This is actually one of my missions, I feel, is also to bring a little bit more clarity around this word, because it's very often when I'm using this word, especially when I go back home to Germany, a lot of people are still like, "Ooh, what are you, a Tantra teacher? What do you do? What does that mean?" Everyone's like,
Right.
"Oh." From a spiritual perspective, Tantra is a spiritual path. Yeah. It's just like Hatha yoga or different forms of yoga. It's Tantra yoga is actually a form of yoga. Sometimes people don't even know that. And any yogic path has the purpose of bringing us closer to our essence, to experiencing and perceiving and being our in our true nature. Yeah. We often forget that also when we're practicing yoga far away from the East, that's actually the purpose of yoga, is to find that true nature about yourself and connect with that true nature, which is always there. There's nothing that you need to find, nothing that you need to actually look for and find on the outside. It's always there. So Tantra yoga is just one of the many paths, and for everyone, there's a different path that resonates most. And Tantra, then again, is the path that embraces life fully. It's like tantric practitioners are really loving their body. They're caring for their body. They're going through life, enjoying life. They're enjoying food. They're living life fully through the senses, and they're basically coming and approaching life from a perspective where every single experience can bring them closer to that realization that they have everything they need inside of them, that they are complete. So that's the biggest difference to other spiritual paths, which are like, you got to go into a cave, you got to go meditate for 20 years in a cave and not be in any physical contact with anyone in order to reach these realizations. But Tantra is more life embracing. Yeah. But then what a lot of people actually don't know is that there is also directions. There's left hand Tantra and right hand Tantra. And then there's other differentiations. Some people speak about red tantra, white tantra, black tantra, but I like to look at it as left hand and right hand tantra. And that, for example, the entire right hand tantra doesn't use sexuality. Yeah, their sexuality with someone else is not part of the path. So that's something a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, can you go into that a little bit more? So a lot of us have heard about white tantra, and then we also have heard the word tantra being used in relation to sexuality, and we know that it's a deeper connection. But can you go into a little bit more on that, on how what the exact differences are?
Yes, differentiation between right-hand tantra and left-hand tantra. And right-hand tantra does not include sexuality and does not, see like living the sexuality as part of the path. But the left-hand tantra does, by yourself or with someone else. Looking at it from like also an energy perspective, like looking at it from the chakras. Yeah, the level of the sexuality is, of course, working mainly initially, let's put it that way, not mainly, initially with the second chakra, with Svatisthana chakra or sacral chakra, right? And it's from a tantric perspective, it's our strongest energy. Yeah, it's one of our strongest energies that we have in our entire system. It's the energy that actually creates life. So the tantric practitioners that work with the sexual energy, they're all about cultivating that energy, like in Kundalini yoga, bringing that energy up in their system.
Right. Like we know the Kundalini sits at the base of our spine, and then we are awakening that and bringing that up. So it's at the base of the tailbone, right? At the first chakra, root chakra.
Yes.
And then it comes up through the second chakra.
Yes.
And then is there any relationship of why we're pulling it from the root to the second chakra? Is there anything deeper on that? Or is it just that that's the flow of it? And then from there, we really use these different bandha locks and pull that energy all the way up to the crown and into the ethers. Is there any relation to that?
Well, I mean, let's put it that way. The so-called Kundalini experiences or the rising of the Kundalini, I know that's what Kundalini yoga is mainly working on, doing practices to have that happening. But this is, of course, also something that can happen for some people. This happens naturally in life. They have like a Kundalini rising experience and they're just like, for half a day, just
Yeah.
experiencing that. And this is also something that can happen during sexuality, but it's not the ultimate goal, because we got to remember that in Tantra, and we'll speak about this more, I think, in a minute, when we're looking at sexuality, there is no immediate goal. Yeah. There is the only goal is to be in the moment and to be present. Yeah. To be present with ourselves and to be present with our partner, if there is one. And then, yes, experiences such as rising of Kundalini energy can happen, don't have to happen. Yeah. Like from my experience personally, yes, it can definitely happen, especially during sexuality or sexual acts. It can also happen inside of meditation retreats. It can happen during yoga practice. Yes. If you're doing Kundalini yoga, there are the different chakras. And yes, the intention always is to have that energy come from the base of the spine, from Muladhara chakra, and rising through the different chakras, making its way up, through the sacral chakra to Manipura, then to Anahata, the heart chakra, Vishuddha, Ajna, and eventually the crown. Yeah. So that is the intention. Why is that the intention? Is because that gives the possibility and potentially enables us to have what's called altered states of consciousness. Yeah. And it's like in altered states of consciousness, we are, so to say, closer to our experiencing our true nature than we are than as in comparison to when we're speaking right now. Right now we're obviously exchanging a lot at the level of the mind. The body is involved, different areas of the body are involved, but it's like very mental. And like, as you're beginning to bring the energy up, and especially as it reaches the crown, it's like there's a closer connection to that transcendence. And I don't know if you've had an experience like that.
Yeah. So it's like that oneness where you come into that experience of being one with everything and you really connect with source energy. And for me, that's where I've really been able to find my true source, my true self, is when you're there. That's where you really can connect to all of that. So for me, coming into Tantra was really interesting because of that. It was just another way, another mechanism of coming into that connection with the infinite. And I know a lot of my fellow colleagues in Kundalini, they have also experienced different, like you say, Kundalini awakenings where you just feel super sexualized or super sensual, whichever one it is. I really sometimes I can't tell the difference, but it's like you just have this like, wow. You are just, everything just feels, I told the girls one time, it's not like I want to like sleep with you guys, but I just feel like I want to like braid your hair and just like really just connect with you. You know what I mean? And it feels very sexual, but I know that it's not about that. Not that it can't be about that either, but it's just like this expressive way where you just feel so connected. Ultimately, what your clients are working to connect back with their partner is coming into that deep connection where they feel that. I can't put all the pieces together yet about my experience, which is why you and I connected, because I'm just fascinated by the whole philosophy of Tantra. So it's really amazing.
Yeah. And you just mentioned a really important piece, Katrin. It's really embracing that sensuality. One of the most important things for me from a relationship perspective in Tantra is the concept of polarity, and it's really seeing the dance between two partners. And like I usually use the example, classical masculine partner with a feminine partner. I feel like women are really, with Tantra, women are really invited into their sensuality and expressing their sensuality. It's like, why do we need to suppress enjoyment? If we're eating something really yummy at a nice restaurant, why can't we express that? According to like table manners, it's something that you don't do, but then at the same time, it's like, why are we suppressing something that's coming out from the body, suppressing it at the level of the mind? And Tantra is really inviting women into their sensuality, women into their softness. Because it's like, from my experience, when with my work with couples, I can see that a lot of the difficulties arise because of the role confusion between the masculine and the feminine. Yeah. And just through conditioning, through the years of, with women being so independent today and being so strong and being so good at everything they do. And then Tantra is really inviting into that softness. Yeah. I work a lot then with dance, with sensual little practices of like experiencing your own senses or experiencing the senses with your partner. And it just brings a completely new side out of the women often, where the men are like, oh my God, this is actually something that I was missing. I'm missing that softness from my partner. I'm missing that sensual expression. which then again can become extremely sexy,
Right.
when you're with someone and you haven't seen the soft side of your partner in like maybe 8, 9 years, because there is somehow like a buildup. Tantra, I think,
Right.
also works a lot at the level, well, I know it works a lot at the level of the heart, slowly taking away these barriers that we've built around our heart to protect ourselves, yeah, and to open up. And obviously when we're in relationship, things happen, we hurt our partner intentionally or not intentionally, and then sometimes these barriers are built, and Tantra helps through this really open approach and through the physical somatic body approach. It helps to actually like slowly break those barriers down again, be it barriers that were built while you're in this relationship, or be it barriers that were built way prior to that, yeah, not just at the level of the heart, but actually at the level of the sexual organs, yeah. And there's obviously a lot of techniques that can go into that.
I love it. And that's what we're ultimately talking about here, right? Is using, and I say this all the time, using the body as this high precision tool to support our connection to our true source, to God, whatever you want to call it. Using our body, the senses, the sexuality, the sensuality, using every element of what we experience through this physical body as sort of a guide, using the emotions and how we feel about things as a way to get information about why we're here on this planet. And that's obviously the whole point of this podcast, is coming back into connection with our true purpose and why we're here. And when we're suppressing that meal, or we're suppressing emotions and not wanting to feel angry or not wanting to feel certain ways, we're really suppressing our opportunity to do what we're actually here to do, and really connecting to our purpose. Like, my belief is that we chose to come back into a human experience for a reason. Our soul chose this, and we were born in the purest way. And when we come into that, we then start to learn all these programmings and reasons that we shouldn't do these things intentionally or non intentionally. And we just are programmed away from our purpose. We're programmed away from our essence and from our truth. And things like Tantra are really bringing us back into the ability to really feel safe and secure, and to be able to express ourselves, and to be able to communicate and connect with others, with ourselves. So it's just really amazing the work that you're doing and how you're doing it with couples. What you were mentioning about women, and how women have such a hard time being soft and being feminine in this day and age. I've seen this for a long time coming. And personally, I believe that women have had to be more in their masculine because of so many different reasons. So we've done that. And now we've done it. We have asserted ourselves, and we're sort of losing that feminine side of things. And in order for things to be balanced, we need women to be able to feel those things. What do you have to say about that? Because I'm sure you have a lot.
Yes.
I'm sure
Sure.
you have a lot of
But that
things.
was beautifully said, Catherine. Thank you for that. Yes, and it's like, and I feel like, I mean, at least the women that I'm surrounded with here in Mexico, it's like there's this whole movement of women that are just like, you know what, I am ready to go back into my body. I'm ready to feel my body. I'm ready to look at these things that I've been holding back and suppressing. And our bodies are just, they're just wonders. Like if you ever think about how your body works, it's just a miracle, basically. And so our bodies have a, a way of their own, and we just got to also remember what's been happening for a lot of people is that there is kind of a disconnection from the body, because the body, maybe at some point the body was like, you know what, I don't like when you do this, or you know what, I don't like when you, classical example, I don't like when you go out and you just connect with a man that you don't know. Maybe the body at some point was actually like, you know what, I don't like this, but then there was maybe, like other substances, alcohol or something like that in play, that you don't feel the body actually saying, hey, you know what, no, I don't like this. And
Right.
so from a tantric perspective, there's a lot of this coming back into your body and learning to listen to your body, because the more you don't listen to your body, the quieter the signals become.
Right.
And it's like, and for a lot of women, especially during lovemaking, over time, and also in general, there is a lot of numbness for women. Yeah. And the reasons from a tantric perspective for this is that there is like, this barrier, just like I was saying, the barrier that was built up around the heart, there's the barrier built up around the female genitals, because they were just maybe not heard and respected in a way in which they would have appreciated. From a tantric perspective, it becomes really beautiful, because there's like the invitation to actually develop a relationship. Yeah, develop a relationship with your genitals. Like they even have a completely different word. Like they don't use the word vagina, for example. The vagina is called yoni, which is
Mhm.
like beautiful flower. Basically, the translation for yoni is beautiful flower. So there is a completely different new relationship that women are invited to have with their sexuality, with their sexual organs, which over time will help the body open up. Yeah, it's like the approach, it's the intention, it's the openness, and just respecting and really listening to that part of the body, just like you do to your mind, because we're something, the mind tells us something and we're like, oh, okay, I need to do that, because we listen to the mind and believe it's like the absolute truth. But when do we listen to the signals of our body the same way that we listen to our mind?
Right.
So it's Tantra is really inviting back into that. And there's also very beautiful techniques that help women open up again, and to go past that numbness that a lot of women are experiencing, which then can cause that, there is not the desire to have intimacy with their partner, because they're not experiencing sexuality in the same way as their male partners may be experiencing. From a tantric perspective, it's actually it's so beautiful, because the old tantric teachers are basically saying women have about 8 times the capacity, a sexual, like they have 8 times as much sexual
I
energy.
read that.
They have
Yes,
tapped into
awesome.
that.
Right.
Men, yeah. It's
It's
just that
amazing.
usually the sexual relationship, the sexual intercourse doesn't last and not long enough, or
Right.
or the women have not learned to tap into that, into their own sexuality. But like the potential is there for the women to, yeah. And I know women, and I know
Yeah.
also change that has happened for myself, that there can be the relationship where women are actually desiring intimacy and sexual intercourse in that way more so than the men. And that's
Right.
definitely.
I love what you shared about how we shut down that space. And I think that you've had experiences because you've been shown them in a certain way through culture and you think that you're supposed to be this way. Like we can talk about the way that sex is shown in movies or pornography, unfortunately. These are the only two ways that people really see sex shown. So when we are only being shown things in that way, whether or not you do or don't watch these things, you have the idea that that's sort of like what is supposed to be sexy or sexual. And so when you're learning those kind of things and then you are connecting to it that way with partners, or like you said, if alcohol is involved, and you start to really wall off the real connection to yourself, and perhaps even have your own experiences of just generational trauma from the women that came before us. I mean, they certainly weren't the most expressive. They weren't allowed an opportunity to be expressive in that way. And we hold all of that in our sacrum, in that bowl. It's literally a bowl that just holds all of it. So when we're not able to connect deeply into that space, why would a woman want to really open up to a partner? And when that shuts down, it shuts down so many other things. So I think it's so beautiful how you reconnect that. And the fact that women do have, I think it's just so telling. The fact that women have a larger ability, nerve endings, ability, and ways to experience sexual pleasure, and that they still are generally more shut down than men in experiencing that pleasure. I think that that's really interesting, just as a place that we are as a society, and the work that you're doing to reinstate that ability for women to connect and to feel pleasure and to connect with their partner, with themselves in all those ways. So it's really, really powerful work that you're doing. And I think that it's so essential in this era where we really need that divine feminine. I love divine feminine in the sense that it's used, but I also do want to say that sometimes it's frustrating to me that divine feminine sometimes is portrayed as this like woman that's dancing around naked in the woods all the time. And it's like divine feminine is actually a characteristic that men also can have, where it's just receptive and
Mhm.
it's collaborative and it's emotional. It's not that action oriented, masculine energy. It's the yin and the yang. It's the sun and the moon, right? So men can also have that feminine energy, but reinstating feminine energy to females is just so beautiful, and how you're doing it is so powerful. I really am excited to share this.
Yeah.
Can we talk more about how Tantra sees orgasm?
One thing I do want to say up front is that from a tantric perspective, lovemaking does not have that intention of like, okay, we're going to make love to have an orgasm, which is the case probably for 90% of, all couples in the world, that the intention behind lovemaking is to have that orgasm and to have that form of release. Tantra works with the energy and building the energy, bringing the energy up. Yeah. And the one way to bring the energy up is to not spill it so much. Tantra, they would say, and this means different things for men as it means for women. But let me start maybe with the women. What's most crucial and most important is that when we think of an orgasm in everyday life, for most women, it's actually the so-called clitoral orgasm that we think of. It's like a buildup, and then it's basically over, and the lovemaking act is over, and there's usually a downfall of energy. But in Tantra, it's so beautiful because you start to work with that energy. You start to have an understanding of the energy and how the energy moves through the body. You're inviting the energy to move through the body with your breath, with movement, with sounds, and you start to learn to actually spread the energy through the entire body. And for women, it's so important to actually start to tap into something what I like to call orgasmic states. Yeah. It's like, it's not about this one peak orgasm. There's so many little nuances of orgasms that we just don't know. It's like our brain just doesn't know it. Our brain doesn't identify it. We have to tap into the subtleties to experience something new. We got to either walk different ways or just open ourselves in a different way. And so this is what Tantra is a lot about, bringing the orgasm, the clitoral orgasm, which is like, according to Tantra, a so-called explosive orgasm, bringing that inside, bringing it up into the body, like you were also saying, like with the rising of the energy, with the intention to experience these altered states of consciousness, oneness, beautiful sensations. Yeah, and also the possibility with the breath and with the right mindset to experience something that's called a full body orgasm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is for the women, and for men, it's very similar. It's also about building that sexual energy, which we usually have at a certain level, and then we're like, okay, this is when I go this far, and then I have an orgasm, and then it just falls off. Yeah. So Tantra is really about working with the so-called point of no return for men. There's lots and lots of practices, and to keep more of the energy inside. It's like, it's for men, it's a little bit more of a disciplined self-practice, actually, the path of Tantra. But once they have discovered that, any man that I've ever known, that I've ever worked with, once they have discovered that, every single man that I've talked to, they're like, I'm not going back. Like, I would never want to go back to experience sexuality in the way I did before. Like, men are even like, like, I will never go back to watching porn, for example, because it's just like all of a sudden that becomes, not that that's bad or anything like that. I don't want to judge that in any way or form. But just they learn to tap into something that's so much deeper, like sensations going through their whole body, heart openings, when you start to learn to bring the energy away from the genitals, because that's what happened. So basically during the lovemaking that we know, the energy is at the level of the genitals, and that's perfect. That's what we learn. That's what we see. That's what feels good. That's what's intense. But when you start to learn to move the energy to different areas, for example, the heart, yeah, you can have an orgasm at the level of the heart.
Love that.
Like a heartgasm or something like that. And it's like, it's just an opening, it's an opening, right. And there's crying, maybe there's just a completely different way of perceiving that sensation and just a depth that comes with that. Yeah. So it's all about, like you were also saying, moving the energy, bringing the energy up, and seeing sexuality a little bit more like an experiment, moving away. Sexuality, being intimate with my partner, means having an orgasm, going away from that expectation and like starting to engage in it, like with the beginner's mind, and just be like, okay, let's meet each other completely new today. Let's just see what happens, and then sexuality can become a very, very unique experience and path, a healing path, I would even say, because
I love that. I love the idea, like, of it being a healing path, and I can literally feel that when you say that. Like, you open your heart and there's crying, and you're releasing, and you're clearing out stagnant energy, and it is just so healing, and it's really expansive too. We talk about expanding the mind through different things. If it's a meditation that really expands your mind, or if it's psychedelics or something. So many people are into expanding their mind through these different ways. And this is just such a powerful and beautiful way to expand your mind. And just to reiterate that Tantra is something that we can practice alone or with a partner. So it's not just that we are doing this with a partner. There's so many ways and approaches to come into a deeper connection with yourself in this practice and to draw that energy into the places that you're trying to draw it and to really come into a deeper connection with everything that you're just connecting with. It's so amazing. And I love too what you said earlier when we were talking about when you're coming into sex with a partner and you're doing that sort of goal-oriented sex where you're just coming into it for the same purpose of orgasm and then we go to sleep. How can you change? How can you grow? How can you find anything new and exciting and interesting in your relationship? It's not that those patterns are bad or whatever, but there's more available that we can take our relationships through when we discover each other on deeper levels, when we aren't just focused on, let's get to this point. So I really love how you shared that.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a couple more ideas. Would you like me to share a couple more ideas on how
For
that
sure.
can work
Yeah,
practically for a couple? Because one
definitely.
of the main things I do invite couples to do is actually into more self practice, conscious self practice. Yeah, a lot of people. It's always funny when I speak with couples about that for the first time. It's really inviting. It's like because sometimes I then realize that either the woman or the man or both are not fully in touch with their body in terms of, okay, what really feels good. And then it's like, if you don't fully know what feels good, how do you
Right.
expect your partner to make you feel good? So it's, for me, I really recommend both the women and the men into self practice. Yeah. Conscious self practice, not with any additional visual stimuli, but rather really just closing your eyes, feeling into the body, feeling into the body, and just seeing what sensations arise. And this one, especially also for men, is often eye-opening when they realize all the beautiful sensations that are happening actually on the inside when any additional visual stimuli are taken away. So that's something I really like to invite couples into. And then when they actually come together, it's break old habits, make new habits. Sometimes we have to be a little bit strict with ourselves, So I usually have very specific recommendations. I mean, I obviously can't force anyone, but my recommendation then is, okay, please go one whole week without an orgasm. Please meet each other without having an intentional orgasm, because often you work towards it. When you work towards an orgasm and when it just happens. The majority of the time you're actually working towards it because either you want to reward your partner or you want to reward yourself or whatnot. All these different, there's also a lot of attachment that we have to the orgasm of our partner. So to let go of that whole expectation of orgasm and let go of that own attachment that we have. Okay, when my partner has an orgasm, that means I did a good job, So
Right. Right.
actually, I invite couples regularly to go without orgasm and to meet. And there's also very beautiful tantric rituals in which every night they're meeting through one of the senses, and the sense of touch doesn't get integrated until the very end. And then after they've gone through all the senses, so basically the first day they just look at each other. Yeah. The next day they're just maybe smelling each other, and then they're incorporating taste and eventually touch. And then the last night is actually the lovemaking. There's such a buildup of just something new that you're doing that works really, really well. So I've just discovered it's really about the self practice, some guidance, and of course then also the commitment and the discipline for the partners to move away from the pattern.
I love that. I mean, I feel like you're giving couples or individuals permission for something that they feel like they shouldn't do. They felt suppressed and being able to experience themselves, and you're giving them the permission that they probably wished to have someone say, okay, now here's your assignment. Oh, well, it's an assignment. Now I need to do it. So it's really neat that you're just opening up those experiences for couples in that way. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Are there any misconceptions around Tantra that you would like to make clear or, to speak on?
First misconception is it's not just about sexuality. It's about something. It's about something bigger. It's about a deeper connection with the body. It's about opening ourselves up to life and the experiences of life and just embracing life as it is. Yeah. So it's not just about sexuality. It's not just for men. People that are practicing Tantra doesn't mean it's not like all people. Polyamory, open relationships, this is what a lot of people associate also with Tantra, and tantric practitioners. And it's an invitation and an excuse to just be intimate with lots of people, even one relationship. And that's not the case. Yeah. For me personally, it's not the case. It's never been my path. For some people, it is the path to approach, life and love with a polyamorous view. the path,
Right.
but it's definitely a misconception.
I think what's happening a lot lately is that it's that people are pushed to their brink. You know, they are so restricted and so suppressed for so long that then they come into an understanding of a few different things and they just want to go and explore all of them. So it's not necessarily that anyone is looking to be in a non-monogamous relationship or that they're looking for the Kama Sutra, but they just don't know what to do. And so when they finally find something that they're like, okay, I'm going to reconnect to my sexuality, instead of doing it with one way, they want to do it with all the ways at the same time. You know, so it's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I've been suppressed for so long, I can't take this anymore. I know that there's a deeper connection. And I think that they just, like you said, they misperceive exactly how this can go and how you can really come closer to your partners with,
Yeah, yeah,
using one of the modalities rather
yeah.
than everything all at once.
And this is also where I like my professionalism needs to come in, and like I'm also calling out to all tantra teachers out there um,
Right.
to remember that this is a sacred practice and these are sacred teachings, and it's always like you should teach that for what the student is ready, and the sexual energy, because it is so powerful and some of the practices are so powerful and can open up a whole new world, a whole new universe to men and women. Um, that it just also needs to be shared with, with the same, like with not with caution, I would say, but I definitely discern between what I share and what level of details I share, the programs that I'm sharing in, and also seeing where people at, what are they ready to receive. Because once men specifically find that power for themselves, because there is, like a tantric practitioner, a male tantric practitioner has the ability to become basically multi-orgasmic. Yeah. So there is also, that it needs to be practiced with the right intention, and that there's always this intention for connection and depth and healing, in the background. Yeah. And if I don't have the feeling that someone that wants to learn has that intention, I'm not willing to share the sacred teachings, because then it's like it can be also used in a way which is manipulative.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. Let's talk about, if someone were interested in beginning a tantric journey, where would you suggest that they begin?
Mhm.
Obviously, they can call you to talk about, the offerings that you have and the different things that you are able to support couples with. But
Mhm.
what would you suggest? I mean, is there a specific book? Is there a specific course or something that they can do?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. It's beautiful because there is a lot of stuff out there today. It is very beautiful to visit a course or seminar or something like that, just 3 days of, conscious relationships, tantric relationships, because it kind of builds the base. Yes, you can read a lot, you can do an online course, but actually going to like an in-person workshop or an in-person retreat is just like, especially with your partner, if you're trying
Mhm.
to initiate that change together and you're having the first time this experience of like relating more intimately actually in person together, that just creates like, versus just hearing this is how it could be, this is what you could do, you have that the personal experience, and that creates motivation, because the tantric journey is not one that's just like going uphill the whole time. Yeah, it's also work and self practice, as I was mentioning earlier, and it's like
Right.
you gotta want it. So that's definitely something I would recommend couples, or really start an intense journey like with someone supporting you like myself, or there's lots of teachers out there. And what I also do is I do recommend people reading list when I'm working with them. I guess one of the very first books that you could read to maybe fire up the motivation a little bit more is Slow Sex. And then David Data is always a very beautiful teacher. We can all share all that in the notes, but it's a little bit more advanced. But like he starts to speak about the relationship and the dance between the energies. It's so beautiful. It's like once you have a general understanding, David Data is one of the most beautiful teachers. As well as, yes, more from a technical side, Mantak Chia, who's very strongly coming from the Taoist tradition. So there is tons of things you can read, but a lot of them requires a little bit of a background, I feel. Yeah, like
Okay.
especially going into the techniques a little bit more, and then you're just learning the techniques from a book that's usually not ideal. Yeah, and plus they're not
Right.
sharing all of the techniques. Yeah.
Right. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing all of that. But let's talk about your purpose. So, this is a question that I will ask all of my guests that come on. How did you find this to be your purpose?
That's such a beautiful question. Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like the calling and the purpose was always there, and like especially to share spiritual teachings, not just tantra, but also share spiritual teachings. Like when I really go back like first, second grade, I remember myself just feeling like always having this intuition, you know, always having this intuition that there's something more, there's something deeper. I would find myself going out in the fields and just being with nature, dancing around in the fields, singing to nature, and just feeling somehow completely consumed by that experience and connected with nature in a way of like that was so much more fulfilling than
Yeah,
actually, you know, playing with the other kids. So I
I love
realized
that.
in reflection to this episode that that's actually when it all started. And then I feel like there was about a 20-year journey of detour and conditioning, you know, going into the consulting industry and all these things. Of course, always kind of like finding my way back and going into these traditions and into the yogic practice again, but also very hardcore detouring. Yeah, I found myself to be super successful, very much in my masculine, just very goal driven, oriented, and like the years passed studying, and then at some point I was like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You know, like, and I realized I had lost like or totally lost the connection with my feminine, totally lost the connection with my softness, put myself on a one-way ticket to Mexico and started studying yoga more intensely, tantra yoga, hatha yoga, meditation, days and days, almost half a year probably in total in silent meditation retreat and darkroom retreat, you know, and just really immersing myself into the practice, into the own practice, and then coming back over the last few years with tantric partners and receiving my own initiation, so to say. So it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey. Like you're hearing, and just not this one moment, but that deeper intuition that was always there, and then like tapping into my purpose again, and then maybe getting scared, getting cold feet, going back out, you know, like, so I can definitely see that that was the movement. But until in the last year, especially past corona, it just became clear, this is what I'm here for, this is what I'm here to share. And I love talking about sexuality, I love helping people feel connected and be connected. That's always been one of my biggest passions, to share that with the world. Yeah.
Well, you're so good at it. I mean, you're just so natural. It's so easy to hear you talk about these topics that sometimes they have like their own tinge of stimuli and whatnot on it. It's beautiful. And what I love about your story, and I think that a lot of people are feeling this a lot lately too, is how the pandemic really kind of squeezed us into like, you've got to do it. Like it just became so clear, and it wasn't easy, right? Like there was a lot of stuff that we're not telling the parts that's like, no, it's not always easy, but you just know you have to do it now. And I love about your journey also that you felt it very early on in your life. You recognized it. You recognize it now, and you probably recognized it then. But, you know, sometimes when we're not on our journey and we're doing things like consulting and whatnot, it feels like we are so far from our path. But I really just want to give a shout out, I guess, to those times in our lives when we are living the opposite way that we want to be living, because there's so much growth in those times when we really just recognize how much we don't want to live. That sometimes is one of the major catalysts to getting on your path, is just seeing yourself and recognizing this is so far from where I want to be right now, and recognizing the things that you don't want. So we always talk about the things that we do want in our life and knowing how we do want to feel. But sometimes, and for the listeners out there that are, you know, maybe living this life that they're like, I have no idea what it is, but I just know I don't want to feel like this. You're on the journey. That is a beautiful part of the journey. I really just want to make sure to recognize that for everybody, that you can't find your path if you don't know what you don't want, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly. Yeah.
I really see you. I really honor your journey and your experiences and your work and what you've come to it. And I know that you are here to make such a beautiful impact on so many people's lives in this offering. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Katrin, so much. As you were just speaking, I could feel goosebumps. My heart is lighting up, and it was just amazing sharing with you. Thank you so much.
That was episode 6 with Kati from Blooming of Hearts. I hope that you enjoyed that. Just so much great information in there. If you'd like to follow up with Kati further, you can email her at kati@bloomingofhearts.com, or you can reach out to her in her Instagram at blooming.of.hearts. Don't forget to turn on the notifications, subscribe to the channel, all these kind of things so that you are always in the know for upcoming episodes. We really appreciate you being with us and look forward to seeing you next time.